couple. Wait, we are recording. About 5 past. Brian, do you think we should?
Robin's texting me. She was in the waiting room.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she's in the waiting room for the Zoom meeting or the Teams meeting, but she may be caught in this whole Zoom Teams debacle. So I think, did you send an email, Melissa, with
I did. I sent a reminder email with the link. Yeah, that should work, hopefully.
Yeah, I referred her in the text to the email you sent.
Good, thank you.
Great.
I mean, I just sent it at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Bear with us, folks. We're just waiting for probably one more person to join who is supposed to be on.
She's saying, is she in the wait? Melissa's Robin's saying she's in the.
I don't think. Nope, there's no one in the waiting room right now for this meeting. She's in another waiting room meeting. I just texted her the link as well.
Great. Well, she said she was kicked out and trying again.
For joining. I'm glad you could all make it on. We also have some members of the public here today. So yes, thank you all for joining. We're happy to have you with us on this snowy morning, depending on where you are in the state. Could we have a member of the committee call us to order? If you recall, last meeting, Erica McAlpin has actually stepped off of the council and the committee. So she is no longer the committee chair. So we just need a committee member to call us to order.
Hey, Chair, Jeff Parker will call the meeting to order.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. All right. And Melissa, would you be able to do a roll call?
Yes, I can do a roll call as soon as I can find. There we go. Zan Ojero, Janine Hartley, Celeste Jansen, Robin Johnson.
Here.
Andy Leonard.
Here.
Jeff Parker.
Here.
Andy Santana May. Hoi Vu. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. All right. And again, thank you to everyone joining us. We've got a kind of a bit of a small meeting today. We know that some folks had some conflicts, and also with the snow, the weather, things are shifting right now. So just happy that we have you all with us, and hope you're staying warm and safe wherever you are. So we wanted to kick off the meeting today with a discussion of our equity lens, our land acknowledgement guidance, and our equity statement. And you've seen this before. We presented this a few times at the last few meetings, but we've been working on this whole process to finalize an official draft of our equity lens that this committee was tasked with creating, as well as some land acknowledgement guidance and guidance on when it's appropriate to perform land acknowledgements versus maybe something else, a statement of commitments, that sort of thing. And so the goal today really is to move from draft to final document that we can take to the council. We have our next council meeting on March 9th. And we're hoping that we can get these documents officially adopted as the official Youth Development Oregon Equity Lens and Land Acknowledgement Guidance, as well as equity statements. So if we could start, Melissa, actually, I think with the land acknowledgement, that one might be a little quicker. Thank you. All right. So again, the members of the committee have seen this before, but for those joining, just to review, this sort of came out of some guidance that we received from tribes, as well as the Legislative Commission on Indian Services, about land acknowledgements. And land acknowledgements over the last few years have become a common way for public meetings to begin. But we did receive some feedback that some tribes like them and some tribes don't like them as much, and that there is this sense that they can feel somewhat performative, and that it's sort of a rote statement that doesn't actually lead to action. So we thought we needed to develop some better guidance on what that might look like. When do we do a land acknowledgement? Do we shift? How do we shift? And what does that look like? So if we can just scroll down, Melissa. Again, our goals with this process really are to honor and respect the sovereign nations within Oregon and North America, acknowledge historical injustice and resulting harm, and commit to action and policy that address current disparities and will lead to positive outcomes. And I think that's the big one, is really committing to action. So we have developed some guidance for how we might begin public meetings. And it's really broken down into 3 statements or 3 sections. One is that if we are on tribal land or meeting with the tribe, it seems most appropriate to check in with the hosts and to really defer to what they think is most appropriate for opening the meeting. And so that would be a simple just checking in with them beforehand and going with what they would like. Actually, if we scroll down a little bit, Melissa, just to number 3, then we have also, if we do determine that it's appropriate to read a land acknowledgement, we have this drafted, and this is language that was provided directly from the Legislative Commission on Indian Services, but shortened a little bit. And this could be something as simple as just dropping it in a chat at the beginning of a meeting, or if we are in person and we think it's best to read this out, that could be what we do there. So again, pretty simple. Where we've made the bigger change, if we can scroll back up to number 2, is this section on statements of commitment. So we thought that rather than having a land acknowledgement in certain situations, it might feel truer to our mission to have some statements of commitment and just general statements about how we're committed to action to serve the populations that we work with, including tribal nations. And so we have these 4 statements that we read last time, and for those on the phone, I will read them out loud. We have that Youth Development Oregon is committed to investing in historically disenfranchised communities to ensure that resources are distributed in an equitable fashion, supportive of all cultures and tribes throughout Oregon. Engage in consultation with tribal nations and ensure all voices and perspectives are heard and considered in decision-making. Elevate the voices of communities we serve in our advocacy and engagement with policymakers as we seek to realize our vision for all of Oregon's youth, and educate ourselves, stakeholders, communities, and those in positions of power about the historical injustices faced by tribes and other marginalized and underrepresented peoples across the state and the lingering effects of these injustices today. So we presented this last time. The committee overall seemed to like the direction and just had a couple very minor shifts in language. I think one was just taking out, we had reference to federally recognized tribes, and so we took out that language to make this just more inclusive of all tribal nations within Oregon. That really was the main change here. So just wanted to open it up if there are any other comments, questions, suggestions on this from the committee. And if not, if we would like to move forward with adopting this as the official guidance.
Hey, Jared, just maybe I noted in the chat we should capitalize tribes. I don't know if others committee members have questions. I imagine Jared is going to come to this point, which is the adopting this really means saying, let's make a recommendation from this committee to like formally vote and adopt at the next council meeting. So Andy, maybe you were popping on to say something.
I think, because the power of historical injustices faced by tribes, maybe that could be historical trauma faced by tribes. Maybe that might be a change. I'm not sure. I think that's a lot of tribes are educating over the historical trauma right now. Within the school districts, they have classes that go over what natives faced earlier and stuff like that. The injustices feels like it's a whole big wide thing. I would think historical trauma, they have numerous people teaching different conferences about historical trauma, about the natives and what everybody went through, the school systems, how people were, brought away from all that. So I think that would be a little bit more touching to people knowing before meeting. I mean, they'll know what historical trauma is, for one thing. When you say that, they'll know what's going on, and a lot of tribes did face it. I mean, realistically, I would imagine all the tribes did. I don't know, that's up to you guys. That's what I think. So what do you guys think? I'm just saying that. So it's just something I've been through and what my parents and my grandparents went through. So
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, absolutely.
This is Robin Johnson. I just sent an email asking Melissa to send things electronically since I'm having to call in, so I can't see the statement as it is right now.
Yep. And Robin, do you, oh, actually, I think we might, yeah, this came up. We might have, I don't know if we have the right email for you. I might not have. So I'm not sure if you received this.
For the most part, I've been receiving the emails from you all. I know that there's been a couple of missed meeting invites, but for the most part, I have you all on my safe list.
Okay, great. So yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
Melissa.
sorry. Oh, it shows that it sent at 12:20. So hopefully it's going through to you at your SBCH email address, Robin.
Okay, I'll double check. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey, Jared, my comments would be absolutely, if Andy feels like we want to get the language right, if trauma is better than injustices, I think we should make that change. And also we should acknowledge that the phraseology might change in the future as whatever, as we are, wanting to be a dynamic environment that is representative of what the current, appropriate language is. Like we should have flexibility in this. So I would say yes on that. The one clarification I'm wondering is point 3 is if you're going to use a land acknowledgement, the directive is read the following. But point 2 is for other meetings where we're not going to use the land acknowledgement, start with the vision statement and commitments. And I'm wondering, are we expecting instead to say actually read the vision statement and commitments? I want to be really clear on what our directive is, because I think what we're saying is read these commitments. If you're not going to do a land acknowledgement, verbalize what these commitments are.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think so. It probably should actually say start with, because some meetings are in person, some meetings are virtual, and so we thought, if we are in a virtual setting, this could be something as simple as dropping it in the chat. If it feels more appropriate to read it and take a few minutes to reflect, we can do that too. But I think we wanted to leave some of that flexibility just to determine what feels most appropriate in the moment.
That makes sense to me, Jared. Then that leads to my last point, which is if we are doing a land acknowledgement, we should also do the vision statement and commitments, right? Like if we were in a virtual environment where the land acknowledgement was actually verbally said, it would be great to have these also thrown in a chat. So there's synchronicity between what our statement is and what our commitments are.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't do both at the same time. Are there other comments on that? Okay. All right, so I have that we will just kind of tighten up the language, just to say start with the following, and that we can determine whether reading or dropping something in a meeting chat is the best. And then maybe a sentence on that we could perform the statements of commitment and the land acknowledgement at the same time, and that they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, Jared, I think if I heard Jeff correctly, I mean, I think we can tighten this up. And we don't want to get too technical here, but I think we're saying in this second one for other meetings where what the first option isn't happening. I mean, maybe we should just be a little firmer and just say, start by reading. Let's just read, as guidance. Because if I have to decide, I'm like, oh wait, maybe that feels confusing. So it's wait, it's still up to me. Who's deciding? Brian, what do you want to do? Or Robin as the chair of the, I don't let's just say start by reading. And then I guess the more, I hate to say optional, but this third point is maybe the meeting facilitator / head or whomever, and I don't know how and when we decide, but that may be the less or the more optional piece, which is to say, at a minimum, drop it in the chat. and for the meeting leader, opener, facilitator, whatever, that we encourage. It's short enough that it could be read, or when we're in person, as we will be in just a few short weeks. Feels important to read number 2. And since I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe there's a printed agenda, and maybe so this third in land acknowledgement is on a printout that everybody gets, because they all get a printed agenda, so it's there. So I'm just trying to think a little bit, sorry to get into the weeds, how actually this will be used in practice, but I feel like number 1, the second thing should be said. I love Jeff's point about this may morph and shift as we did get into this, and we'll go, hey, wait, maybe we should, these words here, or feels important to just say both of these things, or we'll have to be flexible. And it may feel a little different, and that's okay.
This is Robin. I kind of am in agreement with what Brian's saying. I'm wondering if a part of the tweak is in the language on what I'm looking at as the land acknowledgement, as far as, I wonder if it's a land acknowledgement toolkit, and then instead of saying meeting guidance as that top one of the headers, it says toolkit guidance, so that people can recognize here's a myriad of tools at your disposal. So depending on who you're talking to, or what meeting you're in, or if you have a printout paper agenda, or I don't know, electronic version agenda, here are the tools for you to use. Because what may be confusing by land acknowledgement, it feels like this is a full period stop statement, as opposed to toolkit. I think invites folks to recognize this is an ongoing tool that is designed to be flexible and meet the needs of whatever particular group is convening. And then as shifting meeting guidance is to toolkit guidance, it's again, here are the tools at your disposal. Here are the questions you should ask yourself about what's the right format for the space you're in.
Great.
And maybe that helps us get to a more final version, rather than having to worry about tightening up language, although there might be some places for that here. It might just be, obviously I'm making some language recommendations, but it might be breathing some more wiggle room into the document as it is right now.
Yep, absolutely. Great.
This is Melissa. Robin, you can't see the nodding heads and the thumbs up since you're on the phone, but I wanted to add that.
Great, thank you.
Great. All right, so yeah, I think we can make these changes and send that out again before the next council meeting. Any other comments on this?
Jared, does the committee take an action here?
That's
So-
the idea, that somebody would bring a motion. Yeah,
Not a motion.
not a motion.
No.
Okay.
I think that Jeff, great question. This as a group, I think you can say, however, we don't show a hand. I know, but Robin can't really, we can't see your hand, but like, are we with these changes? Are we ready to bring this to the next council? And in my view, it does warrant a actual vote at the council level. Somebody could push back like, but I feel like we're gonna really lean into this, I think we should adopt. But the committee can make a recommendation to the council to formally adopt. And as long as someone, Jeff, Robin, or Andy feels comfortable, like as a part of this committee's, I don't know, we'll put it on the agenda somewhere, probably fairly early on, because I think it warrants a vote to say that the Equity and Disparity Committee recommends that we adopt this toolkit into use, and we'd like the council to actually have a chance to discuss and then ultimately vote. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. So I will ask my two colleagues here that I feel comfortable recommending this to the full council for approval as the toolkit that we will use. And I would just ask Andy and Robin if they feel the same, and if so, then we'll have it be done.
This is Robin. I'm fine with that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robin.
I was just saying I'm fine with that.
I'm fine too. I'm good. This is Andy.
Wonderful.
And I failed to mention as edited in our discussion today. So that'll be the version that goes to the full council. Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Great. All right. We'll include those edits and that will be ready for the council meeting. Wonderful.
Before we move to the next thing, I just want to publicly acknowledge all the work that staff did on this. And, you know, Andy, Robin, and I weighed in on it periodically, and other equity council members or committee members did, but really the lion's share of the work was done by the staff. And I'm really, really grateful, because I think the product at the end was worth the time and energy put into it.
Well, thank you, Jeff. We're just grateful for all of your support and feedback and guidance. All right, if we can move to the equity lens. All right, same thing here, same goal, getting to a point where we're comfortable bringing this to the council for recommendation for adoption. So, did I hear somebody jumping in? No, okay. All right, you've all seen this before as well. Again, just a couple very slight changes from last time, but we have decided that this committee would be tasked with developing an equity lens. So as you recall, we have the purpose statement and the equity statement as sort of the introduction to the lens. And we don't need to read those again. Those have already been approved by this committee. If we could go down, then we have these equity filter questions, which again, were initiated by the Oregon Education Investment Board in 2011, and we have really revised them quite considerably to reflect the needs of the youth that we serve. So we have these 6 guiding questions. The main change that was requested at the last committee meeting was essentially moving number 2 down, and that now I put at number 5. Oh, I think we have, yes, that. Don't know if that feels like the right place for this question, but it was recommended that felt like it would be more appropriate toward the end. And then the other thing that came up was just, we had a typo somewhere, so we just corrected that. But those were really the only recommendations to these questions.
Jared, just want to ask Robin, you have a copy of that? Or that was a question mark, sound like a statement. Do you have a copy of it that you're looking at?
I do. Yeah, it came through just a little bit ago. Thank you.
Great.
I think Jeff's statement earlier may apply here too, like that there's some flexibility and some like not, well, I don't know flexibility, but there may be some evolution, just seems important maybe to acknowledge. And Jared, maybe we can do this internally. The first paragraph, maybe Melissa, you can scroll to the top. Like, because I can't remember exactly what the first, more Melissa, to the purpose statement. So this is a purpose. So we may need to decouple these at some point, like a purpose statement for the committee, super helpful and important. Love it. To the extent that we then use the statement and the questions sort of as tools, I think we should, maybe even using Robin's word around like an equity toolkit or something. I think we wouldn't need the purpose statement. The purpose statement should probably go with other like kind of committee documents about what the committee's doing, and we might want a statement, like a little background statement that says, oh, hey, in our strategic plan, we named the reality of developing a statement in a filter, and guess what? That was made as an assignment to the Equity and Disparity Committee, which met several times in 22 and 23. So we could come up with a little background paragraph, but long story short, I don't know that this statement ultimately needs to end up in this document, but I think, and Jared, I'm just saying this explicitly, we put these things together in one doc, at least so that as we approve these tools, that, you know, we're not having to like have too many things that the council has to like to flip through, and where's that thing and where's that thing. So there we combine some pieces here that maybe ultimately won't need to be combined in one document.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think the purpose statement really is the statement that was to guide the purpose of this committee when we were creating this committee. So it probably, yeah, that might be able to go on a more general kind of just background committee document, whereas the equity statement might be best to start off here. Yeah, we can, if it feels like the purpose statement is more, you know, just sort of committee general, we can take that out, we can edit. This is a living document, so yeah, we can certainly revise that. But yes, for purposes of approval by the council, we just sort of put this all in one place, so we can say, here's the equity lens that includes the purpose statement and the equity statement, and let's recommend approval all in one.
This is Robin. I have a recommendation. I would recommend that for every, it's almost like, so under the section of guiding questions, there's the number bulleted, there's the question, and then there's like a consider how different groups, explain how decision making, you know. So I would recommend that second sentence be bulleted in, not as another number, but as a sub bullet to what it's connected to, because then I think you break up the over narrative form looking here. And just as someone who's worked with equity filters for a long time, it might help people hone in on the question you're actually asking them to ask, and then be thoughtful that the consideration isn't an additional ask or an additional question. It's a nuance to what you're already asking them to reflect on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think every question here has a second sentence as a part of the question. And I think all of those, that second sentence is important, but it might help people just delve into the tool itself by not, and maybe number 3 is the only one that doesn't have a thing behind the question mark, but it might just help people hone in on what the actual question is, while also being able to keep an eye on what you're actually asking them to do within that question.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, I think that makes sense. other input from the committee?
Hey, Jared, I was tracking it on the other document where I could scroll. I sort of, Robin, I think I really agree with you, but I lost which bullet point you were talking about. Which?
It's essentially all of the numbered bullets under guiding questions.
Got it. Okay.
So so almost every question here, besides, again, if I'm correct, number 3 has what the question is, and then what either the consideration is, or explain how that there's a second sentence there that I'm recommending just sub-bullet under that number, so that people can not get overwhelmed, like, wow, that's like a really hefty amount of questions here. It's actually only 6 questions with some nuance that you're asking people to pay attention to.
Awesome. That makes sense. And so you're suggesting like a sub bullet, not a new number, but if you've asked a question, then what are you going to do with the answer?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that sounds great to me.
Appreciate that, Robin. And I'll just chime in. I love it to the extent that we can make this more functional. Yes, and is thanks to Bill and Jared and the committee. I personally will tell you, I'm not. It's like interview questions, when there's like, here's one interview question, but it's like 3 things. You're like, oh my goodness. Okay, let me check. Okay, answer A and then B and then C. Wait, what was C again? And so we're trying to say, here's a question, and then this level of nuance, so that rather than making this 12 questions or whatever, or 11, we've rephrased it the way Robin sort of have seen, and maybe a bullet will, from a formatting standpoint, will like call attention to the critical question, and then if there's a sub point, we kind of did that on purpose, and I like the formatting suggestion.
Great. All right. That really was the one edit to this document. And then if we scroll down, Melissa, a bit, then we just have a quick reflection section, and then when it will be implemented. And I know, Jeff, at the last meeting, you talked about kind of creating a log for tracking when we're using this, and if we make a decision that seems to kind of maybe be at odds with one of the questions, that we have made sure that we have kind of done our due diligence, and that we have a reason why we make a certain decision. So I think that's probably the next step in this process, is working on that documentation to show that. But are there other questions here related to this document? And if not, are we comfortable moving this forward to the council?
This is Robin. I'm comfortable moving it forward at the council, and I think the point about being clear about like when the parameters are, not so that we necessarily always, over belabor sticking to the parameters, but that when we do work outside of the lines, we're clear as to why. I just want to commend you all on building that part in. But other than that, absolutely, and not even other than that. With that, I also feel very comfortable moving this forward.
Yeah, I mirror Robin's comments. With the same kind, I feel comfortable moving this forward. I am concerned that in the full council conversation, we could get into a group wordsmithing process that I would want to avoid. And so I guess my recommendation would be for council consideration in a pretty narrow scope. I don't know how we do that, but you know what I mean? Like we could easily chew up an hour and just be chasing our tail on it. And staff has done such a great job here getting us close. I don't want perfection to get in the way of something really, really high quality. So I don't know how we avoid that. I guess that's what y'all get to sort of facilitate, but I'm with Robin. We should move this to the full council.
Yep. Yeah, and I think going back to what you've mentioned before, that there's some flexibility here, and that you know, maybe we approve this kind of as a toolkit that can change and grow. And yeah, I leave it up to others also if they have input on that or thoughts on that.
How does it work when we give folks, well, I guess my first question, are we even allowed to, second question, have we done this before and do we have any feedback on providing a wordsmithing opportunity, like via like a Microsoft Forms poll or something like that, pre and post meeting? Like, here's the tool, right? If we're going to send out the agenda ahead of time, can we get this to folks ahead of time? Say if you have wordsmithing concerns, like you really feel like there's like a word missing or a comma that is just eating you up at night, submit it here. But and then we can do pre and post, and then, but during the conversation, those of us facilitating the meeting can do what we can to help head folks that way to the form if it comes down to a wordsmithing conversation rather than a shared conceptual understanding of what we're adopting or moving to adopt.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Well, I mean, maybe it's, I think at our December meeting, Melissa or Jared, Bill, remind me, we shared this. I think we shared this content. It was, you know, earlier draft, so some things have shifted, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Don't think we shared the actual drafts. We shared the statements that the committee had approved at that point.
Okay, the equity statement and the equity filter, but not this.
The purpose statement and the equity statement.
Okay, purpose of the committee and the, okay, well, then I was wrong. Yeah, I guess we'll have to, Robin, like, I guess we'll have to. I don't know. I don't want to take up time since we got 10 minutes. I am definitely your second point. I think we can facilitate and say, this is not the space in which we will be wordsmithing. So I think we can facilitate toward that. And then I guess we can give some thought to, hey, if offline you want to provide some, my guide is like, suggestions, or you see a need for a comma or a missing word or a I don't know that we would do a poll per se, but I imagine we can manage some kind of like contact me or Melissa or contact one of the committee, something to that effect. I don't know how formal we need to make it, but
yeah, I guess my general wondering is, in my experience, it's not going to work to just ask people to not wordsmith. They need some sort of outlet for the wordsmithing. And so if they know, okay, it's not going to be a discussion about where this comma should go, but I know I can put my feedback here and send it on wherever it is, whether it's a form or people just email you all. But that's where we can continue to facilitate folks towards in that direction if that's the conversation that keeps surfacing rather than the larger concept of, are these the right questions? Are we asking the right questions? And then for that nuanced consideration, that sub bullet for each, or is that like, that's what we're trying to get to. And again, unless we want to continue to revisit this for the next few quarters, I just think you need to give people an outlet for their wordsmithing energy.
Great.
So however that looks, I'm fine with it. I just think it'll be best served for all of us if that's a part of the facilitation tools made available to us when we meet.
All right. Yeah.
It might even, especially if we're meeting in person, it might be right on your piece of paper and hand it in at the end. Like, that's fine too. We will collect the document.
Yep. Yep. Robin, you can't see, but Brian was giving a thumbs up to that.
that's a great idea, Robin. You're right. We'll you'll have these pieces of paper. Yeah, give it back. And yeah, I like that.
Great. All right. Thank you
Jeff,
all.
I have a point of clarification. Is this going to be also a motion?
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess not motion, but action, or yeah, for recommendation.
Yeah, it would be a motion that we recommendation that the committee brings for the committee to make a motion, or a council member to make a motion to pass.
Because at that time, if you use language around, we move to accept the recommendations of the council as formatted, then that provides a vote as is type of thing. And then discussion follows rules of order, typically rules of order after the motion has been made. So it's tough to, anyway, just throwing that out there is if we craft it, the motion in a certain way, it may help with some of the concerns.
Yeah, Bill, I think committee member can present it and give general. And then I love Robin's suggestion. And I think we'll get a quick temperature, whether it's something that we can take action on that day or whether it needs more work. But I don't want to have I agree, we don't want to have a motion that gets sort of suspended because of the editing process. Those are hard to reel back in once a motion has been made and seconded.
And in the facilitation, we can also enforce, like there's a committee with oversight on this. It's not, just dependent on this group for their final vote. But if they do make recommendations, or again, if they do have wordsmithing concerns, like that will be taken into consideration. But can the motion get the vote on the floor on the 9th to move forward? And I think we do a pretty good job of keeping folks informed along the way, so that if there is anything, wow, this really took a shift with all of the feedback, we actually need to revisit and schedule a whole new vote at our next full quarter meeting, then we can do that at that time.
Great. Yeah. All right. I think we can work with that. So yeah, we can meet internally and kind of figure out what that looks like. The wording there. All right. In the interest of time, I know we've gone way over on this. Then we've got 5 minutes. The next agenda item was a quick update on sovereign nation funding and that work group. Bill, I don't know if you want to give a super brief update on that.
Sure. Real quick, by way of overview, the YDD has set down a path to investigate the sovereign nation funding, which would be a specific funding for the 9 federally recognized tribes in the state of Oregon. As the movement on that has occurred, a work group is being established. And Brian, please feel free to jump in if I misstate this, but the proposal is that the work group would be kind of a subset or use time of this meeting. Perhaps it's the last Friday of the month type of thing, or the one of the time slot within the meeting is devoted to that work group. And then ongoing recruitment for that workbook is underway, and work group. Did I say workbook? I got data on my mind. But work group. And then by way of update, it's as we are exploring this, we're finding that there's a larger movement underway to address some of these same things, and we're making connections. Like last week, we just made connections with a group at the Higher Education Coordinating Commission who's working on something similar, and it may even result in a policy option package or a bill that's going to format or put something in place that allows for this type of thing. So anyway, some exciting stuff is happening, and our goal is to form this work group and work on have something in place for the it sounds so weird to say it, 25-27 biennium. And that's my update. I'd open it up to the floor to Jared or Brian or anybody else who may have comments and or questions about sovereign nation funding.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I don't know, I'm trying, we got like 2 minutes and I want to respect if some folks need to jump to a 1 p.m. meeting or not. I did ask Melissa to check on the public comments, so I don't know that we have any comments, but I will quickly just acknowledge we do have some folks from the Northwest Oregon Works Workforce Board, kind of in the kind of North Coast and a little bit, Central Coast, if you will. Just we appreciate you being on. They were on one of our committee meetings the other day, just offered some real great insight given their work on the front lines. But yeah, Bill, I think you did a great job. I imagine Jared may say something like, what that may mean too is that this equity and disparity committee can kind of move to maybe either every other month or hey, even more of a like quarterly meeting, since we've worked through a lot of stuff. But then in those off months, if you will, we try to slot in work group meetings. So that's my only addition.
Yep. That was the only thing I was going to say too. If you see at the bottom of the agenda on your screens, we have next meeting May 26th. So we were sort of going to throw that proposal out there to move this to quarterly, and then in the interim convene this work group. So.
Hey everyone, I'm so sorry. This is Robin Johnson. I need to hop because I do have a 1 o'clock I need to get to. But thank you for all the great work today, and I'll just keep an eye out for things I need to be circled in on. And other than that, I will see you all on March 9th.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I don't think that, this is Melissa. I don't think that there are any public comments from what I can tell in the chat. And yeah.
Jeff, any thoughts on the meeting ideas or sovereign nation funding before you got to fly?
No, I would just say that I'm really excited about the sovereign nation funding. It actually feels like the articulation of the equity toolkit that we're working on. I mean, I feel like those things are happening in synchronicity, and it's like not only are we talking about these commitments, we're actually taking impressive action. So I think it's great. And as the remaining council member, I guess it's my job to adjourn the meeting, right? Awesome. Hey, again, just thank you to the staff. Thank you to the team, Brian and Bill, Melissa, Lawrence, everyone who's here, and Jared. Great work. And I know you've carried a lot of the water. I do feel I'm excited about the work that's gotten done in this committee. And I hope that as we present this to the council, it goes smoothly as well, and they recognize all the work that's gone into it. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe this weekend, stay warm, and we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Jeff.
So,
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks to our guests. Thanks, Logan, and everybody.